Okay, y'all probably remember when things got really messy between Mel B and Eddie Murphy. He refused to admit he was Angel's dad, and that led to a huge public fight over the baby's paternity.
You visibly recoiled when you heard Eddie Murphy again say those words in that interview, which were very hurtful, whatever the circumstances.
Well, of course, it's not a nice thing to hear. We were both to blame. I wouldn't have said that publicly, and he apologizes to this day about that, because that baby was planned. We planned that baby together, and we were madly in love, and it just went wrong.
It took Eddie Murphy over 10 years to finally accept that Angel was really his child. By the time he did, it seemed like he was trying hard to fix what he had missed. At first, people thought he was genuinely trying to be part of Angel's life, but now that Angel has turned 18, things seem to have gotten even more strained between them. Some people say Eddie still hasn't fully embraced Angel, especially since Angel decided to transition. It's a tough situation that caught a lot of folks off guard in 2025. But honestly, knowing Eddie's past, this kind of drama sadly isn't all that surprising. So let's get into the full story.
Old school, we dated for a while, and by the way, I've never actually had a one-night stand. I haven't. Believe that or not, I have not.
And your dad, he asked your dad for your hand in marriage?
Yeah, it was a very loving, safe, just loving relationship.
Did you even know that Mel B and Eddie Murphy were together at one point? Most people didn't, until news came out that she was pregnant. That's when things started to go downhill. At first, there weren't many details about their relationship. And after the paternity case started, Eddie's team quickly released a statement. They claimed he and Mel only dated for a short time, that there were no serious plans, and while he admitted the baby was his, he only agreed to pay child support and cover the medical bills from her pregnancy. That made a lot of people assume Mel just had a brief fling with Eddie and maybe even tried to trap him by getting pregnant. Some folks went as far as saying Mel only wanted money, but honestly, that doesn't make much sense. She was already famous and rich from being part of the Spice Girls, one of the most successful girl groups in the world. She didn't need Eddie's money. Mel told her own side of the story in her memoir, and from what she described, their connection was instant. She said it felt like a shock of electricity when they first met, like she had known him forever, and it felt like fate. Their relationship moved fast. They were always seen together and even went to a tattoo shop to get each other's signatures inked on their thighs. At first, Eddie seemed to be just as into it as Mel. He even went to her father to ask for permission to marry her. He proposed not long after, which showed that he was serious. So when he later denied any real relationship and acted like it was nothing more than a fling, it completely went against everything Mel remembered. She said Eddie actually wanted a baby with her, and he's the one who even brought up the idea of having a child together. To be fair, Eddie already had 7 children before Mel, so it wouldn't be shocking if he was ready for another one. When Mel found out she was expecting, Eddie was the first person she told. They cried and laughed together when they got the news. It seemed like they were both excited. But as time went on, things took a turn for the worse. Mel said Eddie changed after she became pregnant. Suddenly, she couldn't go out freely like she used to because he was overly concerned about safety. His obsession with security made her feel trapped. What started off as a joyful relationship quickly turned into something that felt like a cage. Mel tried to be patient. She believed Eddie was just being protective because of the pregnancy and thought things would return to normal once the baby was born. But what happened next shattered her. During an interview, a reporter asked Eddie if he was excited about the baby. Instead of saying something sweet or even neutral, Eddie dropped a bomb. He said, "I don't know whose baby that is until there's a blood test." People shouldn't jump to conclusions. That one sentence shocked everyone. Up until then, people assumed they were doing well as a couple. But with that one line, Eddie made it seem like he didn't even trust Mel. And imagine how that must have felt for her. Hearing the man who had once cried with her about the pregnancy now publicly questioning if the baby was his. She was crushed. Mel left his home and stood her ground, insisting that the child was definitely his. It's hard to understand how things went so wrong so fast. One minute they were talking about spending the rest of their lives together, and the next he was denying her and the baby. That kind of betrayal cuts deep, especially when someone you love so much turns their back on you at such a vulnerable time. No one could have predicted how messy it would get, and even years later, it's a story that still stirs strong emotions. For fans who remember how it all played out, Mel was left picking up the pieces, and Eddie's denial left a lasting wound not just for her, but for their daughter too.
Did you ever think possibly of not having the baby?
Absolutely not. It's a planned baby. This is something
You
that we
wanted it, you
both sat
wanted it.
down. Yeah, we both sat down and we discussed it. Listen, I have an 8-year-old. I'm not about to just have a baby by accident. I'm a very responsible parent. We both sat down and planned it, and yeah.
But you didn't plan to be married.
Yeah, we didn't make set in stone plans to be married, but that we definitely spoke about it. And that was, yeah, one
Were
of
you
the
in love
things.
with him?
Yeah. Why would you have a baby with somebody if you're not in love with them?
4 months after Mel B found out she was pregnant, her baby was born on Eddie Murphy's birthday, of all days. She named the child Angel Murphy Brown. But instead of celebrating, Mel had to take Eddie to court. She filed a paternity lawsuit to prove that Eddie was the baby's father because he had already denied it. Now imagine being born into a world where your own father was already out in public saying you might not be his. And not only that, he spent years battling your mom just to avoid taking responsibility. That kind of rejection leaves scars, especially when it's not just private, but talked about in the media. When the court case finally ended, a DNA test confirmed what Mel had said all along. The baby was Eddie's. He was ordered to pay child support and cover the costs of Mel's pregnancy. Still, even after the truth came out, Eddie wanted nothing to do with the child. From Eddie's point of view, he felt Mel tricked him. He believed she had taken advantage of him and used the pregnancy to get something from him. Things got so tense between them that Eddie's ex-wife, Nicole Murphy, had to step in and help smooth things over. It reached the point where Eddie didn't want to have anything to do with Angel, not because of the child, but because he didn't want to deal with Mel anymore. That's how bad things got. He stayed away so long that Angel started thinking someone else was her father. Mel was married to a man named Stephen Belafonte at one point, and Angel actually believed he was her dad. Eddie was so distant for so many years that he barely existed in Angel's world. It wasn't until Angel got older, around her teenage years, that she and Eddie even tried to build any kind of bond. But by then, the damage was already done. Angel had grown up without him and had already learned how to